That fateful evening, a loud sound came from Ego's hut. "Ah! Help me, please. She is in labor," one of her neighbors said. The few women living close to their house gathered according to their tradition. They took her to the native midwifery's room. It took hours for the baby to come. The women could not believe their eyes. Upon arrival of the newborn, "Tofiakwa, abomination," one of the women said. After 10 years of barrenness, she gave birth to a tuber of yam. So all this while, Ego has been harboring yam in her womb. God forbid evil. My eyes have seen my ears. Even the nurses were terrified at the sight of this. While all this were happening, Ego laid quiet on the hospital bed, thinking about her life. In her heart she asked, "Who did I offend? Who have I wronged? Other women carried their baby home from labor room, but I am carrying a tuber of yam. Why me, God? Who did I wrong to deserve this?" She could not believe that came out from her womb. But in all this, her greatest fear was the fear of being stoned to death. As is known in their tradition, any human that gave birth to a non-human must be killed, because in their tradition, such a person is said to be possessed or cursed by the gods. Ego was the first wife to Mazi Ugo. They have been married for 10 years without any child. During the 8th year of their marriage, Ego persuaded her husband to take a second wife who can bear him children. Mazi Ugo was the only son of his father. Not only that he was wealthy and famous, he loved and respected his wife so well. Because of the love he had for his wife, he initially kicked against her request to take a second wife. But because he was the only one left in their family, if he dies without a child, his father's lineage would close, as the say goes in Igbo land, that a man without a child has nothing to be remembered for in the future. To avoid this, and after too many persuasions from his wife, Mazi Ugo took a second wife. He married Ngoli, a helpless orphan who has been living in hardship for years. Ego thought the best way she can help Ngoli, her friend, was by letting her be her co-wife, with the expectations that she would respect her, being that she has always been good to her for years. She never knew she was digging her own grave when she made the decision to marry Ngori into her lovely home. Some years passed after Ugo married Ngoli, yet she could not bear him a child. Rather, Ego became pregnant. When Ego noticed that God has finally blessed her with pregnancy, she was so happy. Out of happiness, she told Ngoli, her co-wife, the good news. Ngoli pretended to be happy and celebrated with her. But when Ego left, she bit her finger and said, "This can't happen. If she has this child, I will be of no use to this family, because the purpose to which I was married into this family, I have failed to achieve. If this child is born, every of Ugo's inheritance will be given to him or her. I won't let that happen. I must be the one to give my husband a child. I must do something." Ngoli, with the help of Njakara, the wicked deity, transformed the child in Ego's womb into a tuber of yam, which resulted in the tragedy that Ego currently faced. The news of Ego's unfortunate delivery spread like a wave all over the town. People began to gossip. Elders began to gather, seeking for the solution to the evil that had happened. This is an abomination, a sacrilege, and something must be done as quickly as possible to revert it. A human cannot give birth to a non-human. This must be a curse, and she must be killed according to the tradition, before one day she will give birth to a python that will destroy the whole village. One of the elders lamented. Some of the elders present nodded in agreement to what the first elder said. Some of the elders said her husband was not responsible for her pregnancy. How can you explain the fact that he could not impregnate any of his wife for 13 years, and out of nowhere, Ego became pregnant? Some said she got the pregnancy from Ezeji, the king of YAM. Some said she is an half-caste, a half YAM and half woman. For that, she must be stoned to death. Ngoli heard the plans of the elders and took it as an opportunity to get rid of Ego and become the only wife to Ugo. Because of this, she kept on meeting with the elders with false witnesses against Ego that would make them see more reasons to execute their plans. Her plans was to kill Ugo and take over his inheritance once Ego is out of sight. When Ego sensed what was about to happen, her heart skipped. She became afraid of losing her life, but more afraid of not seeing her husband one more time before she dies. She was heartbroken and shattered. She cried bitterly, but do not know what to cry for exactly. Is it for the pain of the pregnancy stress she passed through for 9 months, or the pain of labor, or the worst pain of giving birth to a YAM, or the pain of being betrayed by the people she loved so much and had helped in many ways? Among all this, the thing that pained her the most was that she won't be able to see her husband again. Even if they would kill me, can't they please allow me see my husband one more time? Let me tell him all that had happened myself, she whispered in pain. Ugo has been on a business trip for over 3 months and no one knows when he would return. While all this was happening, she was still at the midwifery's home. When the midwife heard the plot against Ego, she thought of sending her away from her house to avoid the villagers destroying her home once they come looking for her. Ego, you have to leave my home now. You know how these things are done. Once these people start looking for you and find you here, they will destroy my home, and you know I have no other place to stay, and I had nothing else apart from this house left for me by my late husband. You need to go back to your husband's home. I am discharging you now, the midwife said. Ego was shattered upon hearing this. She did not know what to do. Rather, she pleaded with her to help her at least let her see her husband and tell him everything before dying. How do I help you? The midwife asked. Do you have anywhere you can hide me till my husband returns? I promise I won't implicate you, she asked. The midwife took a deep breath and then said, I don't have anywhere here to hide you, but I know of a friend of mine who lives alone in the outskirts of the village, where people hardly go. Some people did not know she was still alive. Some thought she was dead. She is not around currently, so you can go and stay in her hut till your husband comes back. But before that, you have to go back to your house Let people see that you have left my home, so they don't come here looking for you. I heard they are planning to stone you to death in 4 days' time. So I will be taking you to the place by midnight tomorrow. So you have to go now and make sure you sleep in your hut. Let them not suspect anything," the midwife said. Ego thanked her and did as she said. She went home carrying the yam. When some people saw her, they started mocking, abusing, and pushing her. Some even spit on her, and she was just moving slowly, crying. When she got home, Ngoli saw the scene and pretended to be furious. She chased those people away, pretending to care for Ego. She forbid them from entering their compound. Then she helped Ego inside. She told her about the elders' plan and advised her to run away so they won't see her and kill her. She promised to keep it a secret. Meanwhile, she did this to see if Ego had the plans of running away. Seeing this her kind gesture, Ego thought it would be necessary telling her her plans, so she can at least help her to know when her husband returned. "Ngoli, can I confide in you?" she asked. "Yes, even though we are friends and co-wives, you are like a mother to me. You had always treated me well, like your own blood. How can I see something bad and let it happen to you? You can confide in me 100%, she said. She wanted to tell her her plans, but at the same time, she does not want to implicate the midwife. So she said, "Okay, I will leave you a note. Read it and please do as it said." The next day, the midwife helped her escape as she had promised. Ngoli could not wait to see what the note contained. So, early the next day, she ran to Ego's hut to make sure she was still around. But she was disappointed seeing that the room was empty. She knew Ego had run away, but do not know where she has gone to. She forgot about the note Ego mentioned she would drop for her and ran quickly to the elders and told them that Ego had escaped. Immediately, the elders raised alarm and started searching everywhere for her. At a point, they stated that anyone who finds Ego and brings her to them will be rewarded tremendously with a plot of land. The reward set everyone in action. They began to search for her. They searched everywhere but could not find her. They searched for her for 3 days, non-stop. Yet, they could not find her. Ngoli was so mad. How can she disappear without me knowing? She always tells me everything. Why hide this one from me? On the set day of her execution, while Ngoli was obsessed, she began to scatter every corner of the house, even their husband's room. Then, she remembered the letter Ego promised to drop for her. She quickly ran to Ego's hut and saw the letter. She smiled. How can I forget something as important as this? She read the note and found out she was hidden somewhere in the outskirts of the village. But she didn't mention who helped her or the particular place in the note. So, finding her would still take extra days. She went in search of her. It took Ngoli 3 days to find Ego. And finally, when she found her, she lied to her that Ugo, their husband, sent a letter that he would be coming back the next day. So, she told her to return home. The next day, Ego returned secretly at night. hoping to see her husband by morning. As early as 5 a.m., Ngori ran to her hut and told her to run away, that Ugo sent another letter yesterday stating he won't make it. Meanwhile, she had already alerted the elders and they were by the corner waiting for her to come out. As Ego was about to run away, the villagers arrived, claiming that someone saw her entering her hut at night. Ngori pretended to be stopping them and they pushed her away. Ego was inside the room panting. "It's over," she said. "So finally, I would no longer see the sky again. I am finished." She locked the door, but they broke it and entered. They dragged her out and bundled her to the village square. When they arrived at the village square, they began to perform rituals required before the execution. After several incantations and rituals, at 12 noon, when the leader of the elders declared that the villagers should start stoning her, immediately after he made this declaration, a voice from the crowd said, "Who dares to kill my wife without my knowledge?" The voice was powerful and very authoritative, and at the same time, it sounded like a familiar voice. Ego felt a relief of loads from her shoulder upon hearing this voice. At least, her last wish has been fulfilled, but she felt like her savior had come. "Have you all forgotten who I am?" The voice continued, but now closer to the woman tied on the tree. It was Ugo, her husband. Ugo stood before the crowd and said, "You have forgotten my name is Ugomiri, gods of rainwater. You have forgotten you all are alive today because I let rain fall and water your crops, making your lands fertile so you can see what to eat and drink. You also have forgotten I am one of my kind, and no one else can give you rainwater except me. Have you all wondered why it has not rained since my wife put to bed? Just a drop from her hair, and this land will die of drought. I am not going to stop you. Go ahead and carry out your plans, but I promise you forever drought." After this statement, everywhere became quiet. The villagers began to disappear one after the other. They all left the scene, leaving their weapons behind. Ego had ever wished to see her husband one more time, but she never thought he would buy her another chance of living. The villagers, knowing that they have wronged Ugomiri and he would punish them severely, began to send apologies to Ego. Knowing that Ugo loves her so much and listens to her plea, they began to send her gifts to appease her. Because of the kind of person she was, Ego accepted their apology and pleaded with her husband to let rain fall in their land again. Ugomili finally caused the rain to fall for the first time after Ego's delivery. It was then that the villagers knew her importance to them. They regretted their actions. After all that had happened, Ugo told Ego to send Ngoli back home because he doesn't want to be her husband and he hated her. You want to send her home now because you now felt you can have your own children. Was it because she couldn't conceive on time? I am not in support of that, Ego said. How can she be pregnant when I have never touched her? When I said I want you alone in my life, I meant everything I said. I can't be with any other woman, and I trust our Maker will give us our own children. Better send her back home as you brought her here, because I will never treat her as a wife." Ego was surprised at her husband's statement. She did not know what to do after Ugo said all these things, but she still insisted she stayed with them. One day, Ego went to a very distant farmland to fetch firewood. On her way home, she was very tired and it was getting late already. She met an old woman carrying calabash, heading to a stream far away into the forest. Ego wondered why someone of her age would be going to such distant place to fetch water, while there are other streams more closer to people's home. Looking at the way the woman was moving, she could tell that by the time she would get to the stream and come back, it would be midnight, and the place is dangerous at night. So she offered to help her. "Let me help you, ma." The old woman agreed and gave her the calabash and waited for her. She ran quickly into the forest and fetched the water. She returned and offered to help her carry the water home, but the old woman refused. So she gave her the water. When she was about to go, the woman said to her, "You are pregnant again. God has blessed you with another beautiful child. Do not tell anyone about the good news yet. When it's 5 months, tell your co-wife about it. After telling her, leave your house and don't return for 2 days. While leaving, do not lock your door, and make sure you do this when your husband is away for work. The truth about your misfortune shall be exposed." "But I am not pregnant," Ego said. "Who is this woman, and why can she say I am pregnant?" Ego could not wrap her head around the message she just got, but she began to head home immediately because it's getting late already. After moving for a short distance, she turned to confirm the old woman is still with her, but she saw no one. She suspected she must be a spiritual being, so she decided to take her words seriously. She went home and ran some tests and found out that she was indeed pregnant. This strange woman was right anyways. She was pregnant and even 4 weeks gone. She kept it secret from everyone and followed the instruction the stranger gave her. When she was 5 months gone, she informed her co-wife Ngoli about it and left the house. Ngoli did not know she had left the house quickly. She ran to Njakara to repeat what she did before, but this time around, she told Njakara to make her give birth to a tortoise. Njakara gave her some substance and instructed her to sprinkle them at Ego's doorstep. She told her not to cross it before Ego, because if she mistakenly crossed it on the day of delivery, once Ego gives birth to a human child, she would turn to tortoise wherever she would be. She took the substance and did as Njakara had instructed, not knowing that Ego has not been around. The next day, she noticed everywhere was quiet and decided to see if Ego was in her room. When she got to Ego's hut, she noticed that her door was open, but no one responded to her call. She entered inside the room and saw no one. This made her cross the substance she had sprinkled the first day. On the day of delivery, everyone gathered to see what she had this time. Joy echoed the whole village as she delivered a bouncing baby boy. Ngoli was there with them to witness another scene of disappointment for Ego. But she was disappointed instead. Immediately people shouted for the blessing of the next Ugomiri. Ngoli's body turned into a tortoise before everybody. The sight of this put everyone gathered in panic. What is going on? They began to ask. Some of the villagers who were outside celebrating began to shout, seeing what was happening to Ngoli. People inside the hospital waiting for Ego noticed that the sound they were hearing no longer sounded like that of the joy of a newborn, but sounded so terrifying. Ugo smiled upon hearing the shouts. He knew what was going on. He went outside to witness the scene. When he got there, Ngoli began to confess. She cried for help and pleaded for forgiveness. She admitted she was the one behind Ego's misfortune. She narrated her evil plots against Ego since she entered into their home. Thank God you confessed yourself, Ugo said. I had always known from day one that it was you. I saw everything that happened while I was away for business. Just that my wife Ego would never listen, and she had always good plans for you. But what she got in return was betrayal. I knew when you made your last move, and I thank God for sending the helper who saved my wife. You must receive the punishment you deserve. Ugo told everyone present that what just happened to Ngoli was what she wanted her wife to give birth to. When Ngoli tried to run away, her whole body turned into a tortoise, and she was killed and taken away by the warriors. When Ego was told all that had happened outside, she cried bitterly and could not believe someone she loved so dearly could do this to her. Be careful while bringing your friends into your marital home. Ego and her husband later had 2 more children and they lived happily. The